Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Planted Unearthed. My name's Sam Peters and I'm one of the founding partners at Planted, the first contemporary design show aimed at reconnecting cities with nature. As part of the Planted Unearthed series, we're exploring how design, sustainability, food and nature can combine to create cleaner, greener, better looking urban spaces. We're looking in depth at how we can reconnect with nature by speaking to some of the most innovative and respected thinkers in this field. Today, we're talking to a world-class sports photographer who is increasingly moving from the cricket fields of England to the wild spaces of the UK. That process, for understandable reasons, has accelerated during lockdown. His new work, centred on nature and stunning UK landscapes, is already gaining significant attention, and we're delighted to welcome Tom Shaw onto Planted Unearthed today. Tom, welcome to Planted Unearthed.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you for speaking to me.
Well, it's our pleasure, Tom. Tom, tell us a little bit about your journey to the world of nature. I mean, we first saw your work on in the natural landscapes on another country's website. I've known you for many years now through our work in cricket, but certainly your work on another country's website is really catching people's attention. Can you tell us about that relationship?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of started about 4 to 5 years ago now. As you said, I've been working in cricket for a long time. I'd left college and I fell into cricket, and purely because it took me around the world. It took me to some amazing places, up to Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Australia, New Zealand and stuff. And so that really, when I was younger, that really sort of grabbed my attention. You're really in the limelight. But as you grow older, things change, things move. And I really sort of started to go back to what drew me to photography in the first place. As we were younger, I was born in Scotland. My mum's Scottish, dad's English. We lived down in Sussex, but then when I was 12, we moved back to Scotland. And I kind of fell in with a group of lads. And we used to go hill walking, climbing. The outdoors was just, and it really opened my eyes as a 13, 14-year-old to just the most beautiful places we could go to. And often I'd just grab our bikes and just do stuff. And that's where the photography started for me. And as I kind of got older, it drifted away a bit, and the sport thing and the travel really took hold. But latterly I've been coming back to that. So about sort of 7 years ago, I started to get interested in sport in the landscape, how it plays, especially through cricket. I had a really nice picture in Pakistan of these kids playing cricket with the mosque behind and that lovely dusty light you get. And it's really, the relationship is really important. I think more so in cricket than other sports, because it's just played in could be weird and wonderful places. So that was always quite strong in my work, and I really enjoyed doing it. So the natural progression for me then was to start to do more. So I did this surfing series. I went down to Cornwall and it all came out from a holiday when you're just sitting on the hills. The thing about Cornwall is that you can sit further out than the surfers. The surfers are inland more than you are on a headland. Yes. And they're just these little dots. And you can watch them come and go. I've got a print behind me up there. And it's got these tiny surfers on this huge, great big landscape. You get a real appreciation for the size and scale. The scale's really important, and the drama of it. So I made a series of that, and someone suggested I should exhibit it. And through some mutual friends at Serial magazine, they put me in touch with another country. I'd been up there before, and I suggested we just do a small exhibition and sell some prints. And it really took from there. And we sold quite a few. There's a lot of interest in it. And then we worked on another series about cycling in Scotland, some mountains. And then since that, I've just been trying to sort of scale up the pictures as opposed to sell some bigger prints, really. So I still work in the sports field, but the real sort of passion and joy comes from just being out in nature and doing, what could be better than spending a couple of days on your own, tramping through some great wilderness.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And I mean, in terms of your sort of, when you were working in sport, or you still are working in sport indeed, but when you go on these tours, long periods of time away from home, isn't it? And did you kind of tend to get away from the stadiums, or did you find yourself after matches kind of not maybe being able to get into the beautiful countryside that sometimes surrounded these grounds?
Yeah, you're always trying to, it's often quite hard on some of these tours when you get a half a day here, half a day there, but it's always quite, like most photographers, always quite inquisitive by nature. There's always something to see and do whenever you got to a new place, especially in the subcontinent. There are some just amazing things you could see and do. I mean, when in the Caribbean, we'd go in Guyana, you take an aeroplane to Kaitoa Falls, which is sort of a couple of 100 miles inland on this tiny aeroplane on the highest freefall waterfall in the world. And it's just amazing seeing all these places. So yeah, I tried to as much, but it didn't really take off then. The kind of always an appreciation, never thinking that it's more of a path that I could go down and to appreciate it, if that makes sense. So you know, as much as possible, the inquisitive, it's still there, always wanting to be out there and see. But I'm very much about the drama of a place, like nothing. The worst kind of day for shoot is just a sunshine and blue sky. It's almost too boring and too cliched. Give me a misty day, lots of moody skies and that kind of thing. Always just brings it alive a bit more for me. So,
is there anything about it that you miss in terms of sort of the touring side of things? Or you've got a young family now, obviously, but in terms of the sheer noise and volume that can be created inside a cricket ground in India, for example, or one of the big stadiums, it's noise and almost like a sensory overload, isn't it? In some cases, so it's very different to being out in the wilderness, in the countryside, or in the wild open spaces.
For sure, yes, I do miss it, but then on the other hand, I don't miss it. It was it's a double-edged sword. You have to put a lot of effort into the tough times to get the good times, the great matches. There's a lot of times when you're sitting there going, not a lot's happening now. And then you get to the point where there's an awful lot happening, and it's great to be involved. But I think, like most things, you have a shelf life, and I've really, I still work in the cricket, I still do it, but I do it more for clients, really, rather than for the editorial side of things. So yes, I do miss it. I think it's brilliant. I particularly miss cricket going on at the moment, because it's weird to have someone. It's so rhythmical and part of the ebb and flow of English life that it's funny having that stop. It's almost like nature stops. It's quite a beautiful sport in that way, and it's odd not having it on. So at this point, I do miss it. Just having it, it's like background noise, as it were.
The summer has arrived, don't you? When the first sound of willow on wood, and ball on willow and leather on willow, get there in the end. But it's a sort of sign of summer, and I always remember the first smell of cut grass, really thinking, right, the cricket season's coming. And it's part of as you said, the rhythm of the seasons, isn't it? The cricket season. Yeah. I mean, so many people obviously deprived of sport now, but have turned their view to nature and the natural landscape, and a real appreciation, seemingly, of what's around us, just what's naturally occurring.
Yeah.
My wife and I have sort of seen the seasons move and change and evolve and grow in a way that we perhaps haven't been able to, because we've been out walking every single day. But how have you guys, how's your family kind of experienced the natural world, and have you kind of felt more connected to nature in recent weeks and months?
Yes. The first thing I did was, and dragging two young boys, I think most people will sort of, is very fortunate to live in the South Downs and the South Downs National Park. So it's just get back on my bike, which I'd had the bike, and I used to do it as a kid. I was lucky that my dad worked for the railway, so I used to we had free train travel, so I used to put the bike on the train, disappear off to some part of the Highlands, jump on the bike, cycle back home again, or back to another station, come home. And it's really sort of, what's weird is during this lockdown, when everything stops and every facet of your life is different, is that you start to go back to those things that just make you happy and that you just naturally want to do. So that's really was one thing that I noticed, is getting the bike and then going up into the hills. We're fortunate, there's a lot of bridleways up here, and the cycling's brilliant, and it's quite dramatic, it's quite steep. So I produced another series for another country as well, for more print, but it's been brilliant to limit yourself, not to say I'm going to go to a certain part of the country, just to start to notice what's on your doorstep more, which I think a lot of people are doing. A lot of photographers have kind of discovered this. They've gone a sort of different ways. So I thought it was quite interesting that whilst working with people a lot, the natural thing for me to do was now to go and be on my own for a bit and to shoot the landscape. And yeah, you're right. We've got fields out the back of us, and just to see the marks and the lines created by nature and man, little pathways, and how it's changed over time. You know, the ploughed field and then it growing and the colours changing and everything else. And you literally do see it every day. And that's been really interesting. That's been quite good to sort of limit yourself and focus on a really one small area and try and make that area work. And what's interesting now is I've started to go back to film photography as well, get a large plate camera back out and do that, and photograph portraits of people in that landscape, which is something I'm working on at the moment. So it's really just, the lockdowns kind of forced you to feel your way through it. There's little hints of work here and there, but with nothing tangible, you end up sort of servicing that need by just doing what you feel is right, which is brilliant. And I'm sure a lot of photographers are grateful for it, but not grateful for the fact that work's getting a little bit, you're going to have to start to think about earning again soon. But it's been interesting. So that's really what the lockdown's given me is that sense of that I can just do what pleases you really and see where that takes.
And work on your instincts a little bit. That's really interesting. In terms of, you were obviously talking about the surfing pictures behind you and the other work that you've done. I mean, since you've moved into this field, Tom, is there a sort of particular set of photographs that you've taken, or one particular photograph that you're especially proud of, or that makes you, makes you happy to look at? I mean, what's your favourite piece of nature photography?
That's a really hard one. It's what's your favourite? The favourite picture is always the next one. The next one. I did a really early morning walk, bike ride, and up over the downs, and I got a lovely photograph of just the shapes of everything. And it's always that time when you make a picture where you don't think there's a picture, if that makes sense. I've been past it a couple of times, but the light that morning, was a bit of mist, a bit of coming off the land, and it just worked beautifully. The colours, the way the light caught it, and what I love about it is that you could probably go through it 100 times and not notice a picture there. But on this particular day, there was a picture. So I think you're going to put them up later, but I'll put them all together for you. But it's just really graphic in terms of its shapes, and it's got a lot of drama to it, and it's got these lines and these little. It's a very simple picture, but it works beautifully. And I'm looking forward to seeing that large, printed up really big. I've got a medium format. That's medium format digital, and it certainly makes me think I need to go back and shoot that on a large format film. Would be fantastic to get a really beautiful big print. I think there's something about the size of prints. When you produce something large, it's got more depth to it, and you feel more into it. You almost want to. I'm trying to bring people into the picture, so you feel you're inside it, rather than it being something that is just smaller on the wall. I mean, these are quite small. We've got some. Certainly, the ones we're selling through another country are big. Yeah. Trying to go even bigger to make it more of a statement piece. But that's really what I'm trying to do is to not just show people, to let people feel what it's like to be there. I think that's really because that was always the thing as a kid, just being outside in parts of Scotland. It was just the feeling of being there. It was really quite tangible. I was trying to communicate that.
I love that idea that you say about the picture being where you don't think there is a picture, because I've probably incorrectly taken completely the wrong approach to my amateur photography based on my iPhone, which is you sort of, there's a picture there, and you kind of try and frame it perfectly, but actually sometimes it's where the unexpected can pop up. It's a nice idea. Tom, it's been great talking to you. Just finally, if I could, you've obviously covered World Cup finals and IPL finals and some of the biggest cricket events, Ashes series, some of the great events of our sort of sporting history in recent times, and been fortunate enough to be there. I mean, put you on the spot now, but if you, what would be your ashes of nature? What would be your kind of dream gig to cover if you got the opportunity to go somewhere or see something, or spend some time somewhere with your camera? Where would it be?
Oh, do you know what? That's a really tricky one, and it's tricky in the sense that not to choose. Like, it's always quite easy to choose the kind of places that have been done before because they look spectacular. So, in terms of turnaround, the thing I've learned from, as I was saying earlier, from lockdown is that it can be on your doorstep. So, I don't think it's that. It's more. I was one of my other clients I've worked with in Lions Rugby and Ryder Cup golf with Standard Life Investments, and they'd recently done their new office in Edinburgh, and the sort of head designer was a good friend of mine, and he said, "Oh, they've named all the offices after mountains in Scotland." And I tried desperately to explain. I said, "What you need to do then is to commission a photographer to go and shoot the said mountain." And I was trying to persuade them that a dream commission like that would be to put my vision onto their walls and to shoot statement pieces for each room of each mountain. And just so if someone said to me, "Right, take a month, shoot the mountains, do it your way," that would be heaven on my own, up there and doing stuff. So I think that would be it as well. It's just doing that. I mean, I did something similar with, I've been working on another project with hydroelectric dams, with the architecture of this brutalist architecture set against this calm, gentle, natural wilderness. So that's another thing that I've been working on, is just trying to see the juxtaposition between, essentially it's green architecture from the 50s, but it's just so at odds with the landscape. So that was another commission that I was really thinking I could really love to document all of these hydroelectric schemes from the 50s and 60s. It's amazing.
Really interesting.
I think I'm pointing back to anything that takes me back up to Scotland, really. Back up to where Mum and Dad live, and just go and be, in the wilds of nature, just on my own. It'd be brilliant. Love it.
I love that concept. Yeah, I mean, I know I said that was the last question. I'm going to ask you one more because it just came to me as you were talking there, Tom. But just in terms of, we talk at Planted a lot about reconnecting with nature, and obviously not everyone is lucky enough to have the South Downs on their doorstep or the Highlands of Scotland. We live predominantly in cities, but people have asked us how kind of technology can, how do you fit technology with reconnecting with nature? But I mean, what I'm interested in, what that sense that people feel when they look at a beautiful photograph of the natural environment. I mean, you able to talk a little bit about that, just in terms of the sort of sense that you want to achieve by someone being immersed into that beautiful photography?
Yeah, I think in terms of, similar to the way you guys were, trying to bring the city, nature into the city, it's just trying to, in the home, bring a little bit of the outside in. Again, and scale's important here, that you want to be inside it, so you feel, the feeling is that you're there. And that's really, and to give you that calmness and that kind of, that makes you, I'm trying to bring you with me, as it were, that you can sit here. I mean, the one, there's a print that I'm selling to another country at the moment. I must have sat there for 3 hours just waiting for that light. But you just, hopefully the image portrays that feeling of that you're really involved with it. And obviously colour's important, but it's trying to create that sense of calm to it. That's the one thing I'm really looking for, is a really calm feel to the pictures, rather than, I don't want to shake any, you don't want to really, not so dramatic that it's kind of, it's like a, mad brooding sky, but something that just makes you feel at ease, really. And nature does that to people, and it's trying to sort of get that through in the print, really.
Well, you're certainly achieving that in the work that we've seen, Tom. We absolutely love the work you're doing, and I've seen your work in the sports arena, and I know how talented you are, and I've always admired what you've done, and no more so than at its time and present, because it really is fantastic stuff that you're putting out there. So we can't recommend you, if you're watching this now and you want to look at some beautiful artwork, there's some on our own website, www.planted-cities.co.uk. There's also more to see with our friends at Another Country that we've mentioned, but Tom really is an up-and-coming photographer in this field, and one to watch in every sense. So Tom, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having you on. That just leaves it for me to say that if you've enjoyed today's edition of Planted Unearthed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, details of which can be found on our website. We've got more great content to come in the next few weeks. But for now, it's thanks again to Tom, and thanks again to you for watching. My name's Sam Peters, and this has been Planted Unearthed.